Well, hello there all you absolutely magnificent people, and welcome back to another episode of An Ecologist Plays, where we talk about nature while playing games. And today is a very special episode. Now, of course, we are back in the early access of Grounded 2, and last time we did talk about the bees, but today we're going to take that a step further, because all the ad revenue generated by this video will be donated to a conservation foundation, specifically the Bumblebee Conservation Trust, which focuses on the conservation of bumblebees because, well, as mentioned last time, their populations are plummeting, and that is really sad. So to help them, we are going to be generating, hopefully, quite a bit of money. So like the video, share it with your friends and family, and watch the ads, and let's try to donate quite a bit of money to that conservation trust. That would just be absolutely marvelous. Now I'm just again looking for some bees, and today's episode, yes, we are going to be looking at the bees, we are going to be talking about the bees, but also I'm going to be giving Brook Hollow Park a score based on how friendly it is to bees overall, especially bumblebees. So we will be chatting about that in a moment. Now we are just waiting for the bumblebees to land here, but we can actually see one right up there. It is just kind of hovering motionless, I'm afraid. So hopefully there will be one coming a little bit closer momentarily.
Much later.
Right, now I waited a very long time for bees to show up on the deck there, so I am now running around. I'm going to go to the picnic table. Maybe we'll find some more bees there. There is in fact one right up there, so we'll have a look at them in a moment. But in the meantime, we have got the milkweed pod right over here as well. And the milkweed, and it just disintegrated. But no worries, there's another one right over here. So let's see if we are... There we go, we are lucky indeed. We finally have some tufts over here. So these tufts here, these milkweed tufts, they are the seeds. And this... Well, first of all, they are spinning. And secondly, if we just quickly drop one right over here, there we go. We can see that it has a very flat seed over here, and of course the tuft, the parachute at the tip thereof. So this is how a lot of Apocynaceae, a lot of plants in the milkweed family, will actually disperse their seeds. Aha, we finally have found another bee. Well, hello there, little one. And let's just go into photo mode before it flies off, because, well, she is on her way away from where we are. So let's talk about bumblebees, shall we? Now, bumblebees get the name from the fact that, well, they are bees that bumble, that drone. They have this very nice deep zzz sound that they make. In South Africa, we don't have bumblebees. Instead, we just have the carpenter bees, which you may also be familiar with. They look very similar to bumblebees, both being very large bees. Now, the difference being that with bumblebees, you can see here, the abdomen, the backside here, is extremely fuzzy. Whereas the carpenter bees, they actually have a hairless abdomen, so that's the easiest way to differentiate between them. Now the bumblebees, as mentioned in our previous episode, they are really plummeting in numbers, and that's mainly due to things like loss of habitat, mainly due to the loss of meadows and wildflower patches overall. Also, of course, the use of pesticides, both in agriculture and in gardens, and then also the mechanization of agriculture, where previously horses played a very important role in agriculture, and that then resulted in large pastures of clover and other food plants for the horses. Nowadays, with tractors, well, you don't need all those lucerne and all those clover fields. And those clover fields and lucerne fields are very important feeding grounds for things like the bumblebee here. And as they were lost due to mechanization, due to tractors becoming more common, agriculture had less of a benefit to bumblebees. And as a result, well, it was just downhill from there. That, along with the use of pesticides and also synthetic fertilizers, that also has resulted in major collapse of the bumblebees. Now, bumblebees, unlike the honeybees, do not form massive colonies. I think one of the largest ones ever recorded was 1,700 bees strong, whereas honeybees can form tens or hundreds of thousands of bees in a colony. Usually, the bumblebee colony is only about 50 or so much smaller than your honeybees. They also do not live very long. The colonies don't have a long lifespan, especially in your temperate regions, in areas away from the equator. So what normally happens is that, let's say this is a new queen bumblebee. She will hatch during the warmer months of this year, so that will be in spring or summer. And then towards the end of summer, as you start heading into autumn, she will eat a lot. and she needs to build up her fat reserves. And then she enters a period of what we call diapause, which is just like arrested development. She just kind of hangs around, kind of like hibernation, and that will very often be in places like under leaves and in some kind of shelter. She will then wait for winter to pass, and when spring rolls around again, she will emerge and she will start a new colony. And she will produce little wax spots to fill with nectar by secreting wax from between her sturgites, which are the little sections of her abdomen, the lower sections of her body here. She will then start a colony all on her own. But before all that can happen, she needs to mate with a male. So at the end of summer, she mates with at least one male, and she then stores the sperm of that male or those males. And then when the time comes for her then to start a new colony, she will then use the sperm from the males that she mated with, and she can lay fertilized eggs. And all those fertilized eggs will develop into her workers, into other females. She can also, without mating, she can also produce males. Those males can then mate with one of the females or with a new queen, and they can then technically start next year's colony. So then during spring and summer, the colony will grow a bit. The workers will go and collect food, bring it back to the queen, bring it back to the brood. They collect nectar, they collect pollen, and the developing larvae need both. They need nectar for the sugars, and they need pollen for the protein. Of course, as summer then rolls to an end, the queen will produce more reproductive individuals, more males, and more new queens. And those new queens will then again mate with the drones. They will have a whole bunch of sperm stored within them, and they can then go into diapause, hide away for winter, and then again in springtime emerge. The old queen here and her colony will very often die off, especially in the more temperate regions. The colony does not live longer than a year, so quite short-lived, especially compared to honeybees, which can have hives living for many, many years. But really, really an awesome little critter. The bumblebees in particular, they are actually able to fly in colder temperatures than many other insects and many other bees. And that's partly due to the fact that they've got the fuzziness over here, which does keep them warm. Their muscles can also function, I believe, down to about 7 degrees Celsius. So in quite cold conditions, they can still remain active. Very often in colder conditions, they actually shiver. And I mean, what's more adorable than a fuzzy little bumblebee shivering to stay warm? I mean, that is just absolutely adorable. And within 5 minutes, they can actually raise their temperature sufficiently for them to then start flying around, even in cold conditions. Even if the air temperature is around 13 degrees, within 5 minutes, they can heat up their flight muscles and they can start buzzing around looking for food. Now, what I also love about bumblebees is one of their old names. So bumblebees, along with certain beetles, especially the cockchafers, they were also previously known as Dumbledores. And I mean, that is where Albus Dumbledore from Harry Potter also gets his name from, because J.K. Rowling could just imagine him humming under his breath, very similar to these bumblebees over here. So a little Dumbledore. I think that is just absolutely adorable. Now, we do know that this is not a parasitic species of bumblebee, because we do occasionally see some of these bumblebees flying around with pollen on their hind legs. The parasitic species, the ones that are social parasites and have their queen killing the queen of the normal social bumblebees, they lack those pollen baskets. They actually cannot carry pollen around. They rely completely on the bumblebee that they parasitize to keep them alive. So yeah, it's very, very interesting. Those cuckoo bumblebees that I mentioned in our previous episode as well. Well, these ladies, absolutely stunning. And we will also now talk a bit about how bumblebee friendly this park is. I just have to quickly get rid of some of these weevils and so that are in the area. Okay, so let's address the bumblebee in the room. Is this park bumblebee friendly? Now, ignoring the fact that there's a whole bunch of trash lying around, which I think one could also kind of excuse considering the explosion that happened here and all the chaos that surrounded that. Is this really a bumblebee friendly place, this park? Now, I would say that largely yes. Bumblebees do love flowers that are pink or purple, and we do have quite a few pink flowers around. We've got the milkweed around, and I'm sure the bumblebees could go for those. And we also have got hostas around. Now, I don't see the hosta here at the moment, but I think, yeah, there we go. Right over there are hostas planted as well. Those are the plants that we can actually get the petals of on the picnic table here as well. Now, I've got a bit of a problem with those hostas there. They are exotic. They do not occur in North America. They come from Asia. And one of the best things you could do to help conserve bumblebees is to plant indigenous flowers, and hostas would not be indigenous to this area. The reason we actually plant indigenous flowers rather than these exotics is because those flowers co-evolved with the bees that you have, or the pollinators that are in the area. So the bees would easily go and pollinate them. So the plants, the bees, everyone benefits from that interaction. Bringing in exotics like the hostas here, well, that doesn't really necessarily help the bumblebees who did not evolve to pollinate those plants. Now, sure, bumblebees can also do what we call nectar robbing, which is where instead of drinking the nectar like a normal bee would and getting pollen stuck on them, they actually drill a hole at the base of the flower and then sip the nectar from there. There's a bit of a sneaky way to get the nectar without, in essence, pollinating the flower. So yeah, we have got flowers, quite a bit of it, but unfortunately we do also have quite a few exotic flowers here which are not as nice. Now what we also have are lots and lots of leaves lying around the park. I mean, there's a leaf over there, a whole bunch of little hidey holes for the new queens to go and hide during diapause. So there is that. There are suitable hibernation spots for them, and if you want to conserve bumblebees, that's one of the best things you can do, is actually to keep your garden a little bit wilder. Leave the leaves, always leave the leaves, leave places for the bumblebees to go and hibernate and be safe and warm and protected during their diapause. We also do have quite a few, what we typically would say are weedy species. We've got dandelions, for example, flowering over there, and all over the park we have got dandelions flowering. We've got milkweed plants that are flowering. All those plants are very useful sources of pollen and or nectar for bees and other pollinators. So overall, that's actually quite good. The only real problem being the fact that, yeah, we do have those exotic plants there. And then there is also, and I have encountered this with a friend of mine when we were playing last night, I have encountered the cave where there is a lot of pesticide in there. So there are toxins in this park as well, and that is bad. I know those toxins most likely were used to wipe out the rodents in the tunnels there, and we'll talk about that when we get there. But the fact that you had pesticides used in this park also means that there are probably herbicides used in this park as well. And if that is indeed the case, well, that does not bode well for the bumblebees, because especially systemic herbicides that are taken up by the plants and transported via their vascular tissue, the xylem and the phloem, that goes into the nectar and the pollen of the plants. And when the bumblebees are then exposed to that, well, that will result in their death, and the colony can suffer as a result and potentially be wiped out by that in the process. So the potential use of pesticides in the park here, really not great. I am not a fan of that. So in our garden, for example, we do not use pesticides. We leave the leaves. We have a nice bunch of little wilder areas in our garden. We've got sticks lying around, nice little heaps of sticks. Bumblebees sometimes do also nest or hibernate or go into diapause in compost heaps. And if you've got that, well, maybe leave it undisturbed during the winter months so that bumblebees can overwinter there. That could be a very nice thing to also try and help them. Now, I do know we do have, not yet here, but I do believe soon we will get a garden area. That is going to be, I guess, like a little community garden, maybe a greenhouse, but community garden area. And I suspect it's going to come to that side over there. And in that area, if we have got things like tomatoes, well, the bumblebees are going to be extremely important, because bumblebees are very important for the pollination of certain plants, like tomatoes and a whole bunch of other plants, including some indigenous species that co-evolved with the bumblebees. And that's due to them doing buzz pollination, where they actually clasp onto the flower and they buzz at a different frequency. And if you listen to them, you'll find them going zzz, and then changing their frequency, zzz, so going higher or lower. And that results in the plant actually releasing its pollen. Without that buzzing there, they won't release their pollen easily. And then with the buzzing, they do release the pollen. And then, of course, the bumblebee can get the pollen and carry on her merry way. And that's also known as sonication, the use of sound in that case to release the pollen. And that is just absolutely amazing. So the plants and animals really have co-evolved with one another. If you lose the bumblebees, you are going to lose a lot of different plants in the area as well. And we obviously do not want that. So overall, this park, how would I rank it in terms of being bumblebee friendly? Well, there are lots of flowers for them to pollinate. The weeds are left. There are quite a range of habitats present as well, We unfortunately have got the exotic hosta that are in the garden as well. There's the potential use of pesticides or herbicides in the park as well, but there are also some places for the bumblebees to shelter, and also some holes in the ground where they can actually nest as well. So overall, I would rank this as a B+ in terms of being a good spot for bumblebees to survive or to be present. And you know what? That's actually not too shabby. It actually ranks higher than many people's gardens, which, you know, that is unfortunately a terrible shame, but that is how things are. So what can you do? Well, plant native plants. That I kind of hinted at earlier, but if you can plant a whole bunch of indigenous species, and one of the best ways to find out what species are indigenous to your area is to actually go onto iNaturalist and then look at your area and look at what plants naturally occur in that area. If you do that and you then plant those indigenous species, that will go a long way to ensuring that the bumblebees actually have some nice food, some nice plants to visit for the nectar and the pollen. Also plant a variety of plants. Plant some that also flower at the beginning of spring, some that flower in the middle of summer, and some that flower towards autumn. That will allow the bumblebees to always have food available, which is very important as well. And if not for the bumblebees, then it also helps the other pollinators, which is, you know, equally important. Also, of course, as mentioned, do not use pesticides, do not spray herbicides, do not kill the plants. If you want to get rid of certain plants, try to remove them mechanically, like literally pulling them out rather than using herbicides, because those herbicides, well, they are really bad for the environment. And then, of course, also try to raise awareness. I mean, that is what I am doing here with this video today. Tell your friends, tell your family, let them watch this video, share it with the people you know and you love and you know that have gardens and would love to have more bumblebees in their gardens. And of course, if you can, try to donate to some of the organizations like the Bumblebee Conservation Trust that we are raising funds for with this episode. Donate to them. They are doing amazing work trying to conserve the bumblebees. And of course, there's also, as mentioned previously, the Xerxes Foundation for Invertebrate Conservation in North America doing a marvelous job as well. And now what we are going to do is we are just going to build some spike strips, because that is apparently what we have to do. Just as a very nice "you are not welcome" to anything trying to attack our house. Now apparently, there we go, we are going to be under attack by a stranger. Oh, there they are, haha. And apparently they're just going to attack us and our buggy. So that is actually quite nice, our buildings will not be attacked. Which is interesting to consider, because we are used to the enemy waves attacking our buildings and actually destroying that. So I am very glad that our buildings will not be under attack. There we go, that wasn't too difficult. So now after that attack, we now have two acorn turrets as well. One facing this way and one facing this way. And the reason I have built them on this slope over here, on these sloped roofs, is so that we can easily climb in and have quite a wide range that we can actually attack. And we have got some rocky rounds that we can also boom at enemies. So yeah, that is quite cool, I must say. They're not as fast as the pointy rounds, but they are quite nice. So when we are attacked again, we at least have a way of defending ourselves. Now that is what we are going to be calling it a day, everybody. So thank you very much for joining me on our little adventure here. Hope you had fun. As I talked a bit about bumblebees. Oh, bumblebees are so cool. I really hope that we will be able to donate quite a bit of funds to the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. As mentioned, all the funds we generate, and that will be up until the 31st of December 2025. After taxes, all the funds we generate in ad revenue from this video will be donated to the Bumblebee Conservation Trust. So hopefully we can make quite a sizable donation at the end of this year. Of course, if you want to help, please do also share this video with people, watch the ad, and every time an ad is watched completely, that will be a bit of money that we can donate to that conservation trust. And if this video does well, then I will definitely in future do another one where I donate to an organization, to a conservation organization. But for now, thank you very much everyone for tuning in. Hope you have a wonderful day and weekend further, and I will see you all soon. Until then, stay safe everyone. Cheers!